We live in a world that's just obsessed with being busy, right? A packed schedule is supposed to mean a full life, but is that really true? So today, we're going to dig into what it actually means to build something that lasts, long after all that busyness just fades away.
So let's just start with a really direct question for you. Think about your last week. Were you just busy, or were you truly productive? It's a huge distinction, and you really want to pay attention to it, because as we're about to see, they might look similar, but they lead to completely different places.
And this gets right to the heart of the whole problem. Our culture all around us constantly confuses motion with meaning. We see that full calendar, and we just assume, oh yeah, progress is happening. But what if that's just an illusion? The idea we're diving into today is a radical and honestly necessary challenge to that way of thinking.
And that brings us to something we can call the busyness trap. I mean, you know the feeling, right? You run around all day, you're checking things off your to-do list, you feel like you're getting so much done, but then at the end of the week, you kind of look back and think, wait, what did I actually accomplish? That's the trap.
Okay, so let's get really clear on our terms here. Busyness, that's just about volume. It's having a great deal to do. But effectiveness, now that's about results. It's about actually producing the outcome you wanted. The trap that we all fall into is thinking that being busy will automatically make us effective. And well, it just doesn't work that way.
So, if that's the trap, how in the world do we get out of it? Well, the answer is probably not what you'd expect. It's not about doing more or being more efficient. It's about starting from a place of simple presence. It's about shifting our focus from all that frantic activity to just quiet attention. Let me tell you a story. It's about a young Angela Merkel. Her father was a pastor, always incredibly busy. He'd promised her he'd be right back, but then hours and hours would go by. Now, it wasn't that he was being unkind, he was just busy. He wasn't truly present, he wasn't listening to the promise he'd made. And that gap, that space between his words and his reality, slowly ate away at the most important thing of all, trust.
That story just perfectly sets up this profound idea from the theologian Paul Tillich. He said the first duty of love isn't to fix things, or solve problems, or even to speak. The very first duty is to listen, to simply be present. Because that right there, that's the foundation for trust, for any real connection, and yeah, for any meaningful action.
So this whole idea of presence, of listening, it leads us directly to the absolute core distinction of this entire explainer, the critical difference between motion and action. Now, on the surface, they can look almost identical, but trust me, they are worlds apart. There's this great little parable from Anthony DeMello that just nails this idea. A group of disciples, they're so eager to impress their master, so they dive into all this frantic activity. But the master just kind of laughs and tells them, that isn't action, that's motion. So, what on earth is the difference? Okay, here it is. Here's the breakdown. Motion feels productive. It's the packed schedule, the endless meetings, the feeling of getting things done. But it's temporary. It passes. Action, on the other hand, creates real, lasting results. It's not about the activity itself, it's about building the underlying capacity to do more and better work in the future. You know, this isn't some brand new idea. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus was talking about this 2,000 years ago. He said, the labor, that's the motion, is temporary. It fades. But the good, the result of true action, that's what endures. That is the real scorecard for our effort.
And look, this whole action over motion thing, it's not just about your personal to-do list. This idea scales way, way up. It applies to some of the biggest, most complex systems we build, from giant corporations all the way down to our own bodies.
So here's a question you probably weren't expecting to hear today. What on earth could a legendary management consultant and a world-class strength coach possibly have in common? The answer, it turns out, reveals a universal truth about how to build anything that's meant to last. So check this out. The management guru Peter Drucker always argued that a company's real goal isn't just short-term profit, that's motion. It's building its long-term capacity to create value. Now, hop over to a totally different world. Strength coach Dan John says basically the same thing about the human body. If you chase quick gains and neglect your foundation, time will expose and magnify every single weakness. See, they're both arguing for action over motion. Build the capacity first. And we can take this logic even bigger, to a societal scale. Nelson Mandela argued that things like poverty aren't just accidents of nature, they are man-made. They're the result of systems and structures that we humans have built. And his point was, if something is man-made, it can be unmade through the deliberate,
focused actions of human beings. Okay, so I know what you might be thinking. All this talk about big, meaningful, world-changing action can feel, well, a little paralyzing. It can feel overwhelming. If you're supposed to do something that really, truly lasts, where do you even begin? Let's talk about that.
Well, there's this wonderful old proverb that has the perfect answer for that feeling. We so often wait around thinking we don't have enough resources, or a good enough plan, or enough time. But this proverb insists that's completely backward. The resources, the thread, don't show up before you start. They appear as a result of you starting to weave.
So how do we actually start weaving? It really boils down to 3 steps. First, you have to let go. You gotta stop worrying about what some imaginary critic or reader might think. Second, you have to reframe your whole mindset. There is no such thing as failure. There is only feedback. And finally, you bring it all back home. You have to be present. You have to realize that this moment, right now, is where it all begins.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here, from our personal to-do lists all the way to global social change. So let's bring it all together and ask that final, essential question. After everything is said and done, what just passes away and what truly remains?
First up, let's talk about what fades. Think back to that idea of motion, that feeling of momentum you get from being busy, the quarterly profits that look good on a spreadsheet, that packed schedule, the passing pleasure of checking a box. All of it. It's temporary. It all passes. But what about action? What remains when we focus on that? Well, that's where you find the things that are truly built to last. The trust we earn by being present and keeping our word. The capacity in our companies, our bodies, our communities that we build over time. The wisdom we gain. And of course, the actual good we create in the world. And you see, it all connects. It's a chain. The quality of our presence, our ability to truly listen, that determines the quality of our action. And the quality of our action, that is what ultimately determines our legacy. It determines what of us endures. So at the end of the day, before we can act effectively, before we can even dream of building something that truly lasts, we have to learn to be present. We just have to learn to listen. Because that one simple, quiet act, that is the foundation for absolutely everything else that remains.